All right, y'all. For the latest edition, we have Kelsie Domer. She is the third female athlete there in the rodeo circuit that we got to feature in our video for Keep Up With A Cowgirl. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you. Well, so the whole point of this that we're trying to do is kind of tie in the folks who are in the music world or fans that don't really understand, the rodeo life and what's behind the scenes. I kind of explain it as people think that we just kind of show up, step on stage, and that's all there was to it. And there's
Right.
a every single day of the week detail oriented strategy of getting there. So we just want to hear your story and how you got started. And with
Cool.
you, it's even more unique because I noticed in the video that you actually rope and as well as, or I guess you barrel race and rope, correctly?
I don't barrel race anymore. I mean, I have before, but I just mainly rope now. So
I got you. Well, we're
yeah.
going to get into all that, but I want to start at the very beginning. So tell me about growing up, where you grew up, how you got into it. I'm just going to let you take the reins and tell us your story.
Cool. I was born and raised in Cherokee, Oklahoma, little bitty town in northwest Oklahoma. I've got two younger brothers too. My two brothers right now still live in Cherokee. I'm the only one that's moved down to Texas, but my family farms and ranches a little bit. My dad is actually a lineman and my mom worked at the bank, but they farmed in their spare time, and my mom's dad farmed for a living. So we were already all around the ag industry or Western way of life. So we just grew up learning how to doctor cattle and do that, and then we grew up junior rodeo and stuff too. So it's kind of how I got into it.
Awesome. Awesome. So what was the turning point in your life when you started competing and realizing that that's what you wanted to do? Was there a defining moment or was it something that took time? Like, how did you go from A to B?
Yeah. Well, of course, started in the junior rodeos, junior high rodeoed, high school rodeoed, and then I got a scholarship to college rodeo in Weatherford, Oklahoma. And so I went to school there and rodeoed there. And when I was in college, I think that's, obviously always dreamed of, wanting to rope and, do big things. But back then we didn't have as many opportunities as now. But, in college, I was like, man, I think I can do this at the pro level. And I want to try to possibly do this to make a living. And so after I graduated in Weatherford, that's when I moved down to Texas and dang sure tried it on to see if I could, handle it or, make my living at it. And I haven't moved back.
I love it. Well, hey, that's kind of me. I grew up in Arkansas and went to Nashville, and I moved to Texas 4 years ago, and I'm kind of the same boat. I'm like, man, I could have got here a little faster, but hey, better late than never. So
That's right. That's
I
right.
love it. Well, you kind of spoke a little bit, but what inspired you? I mean, obviously you grew up around ag and you liked it, but I mean, what was that defining moment that made you say that's what I want to do? I mean, everybody's got a dream and thinks that we want to go do this or be nice to do this, but when did you realize it was actually a reality?
I'm very competitive. I've been competitive since day one. And my brothers are competitive too. And I remember when I was younger, if the boys could do something, I wanted to be able to do that too. So that kind of started the fire. If I saw somebody doing a rope trick or, they were roping this fast or doing whatever, it's like, man, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do it and then I'm gonna top it. And so that started young, started a fire that way. But then I had success in the high school and college, and that's when it was, kind of starting to where more and more opportunities were happening, just not as many as now, but it's just that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I loved it from the get-go, loved being around horses, loved roping. I played sports growing up too, so the competitive edge was always there. But when I was in college and had that opportunity and started doing some amateur rodeos and bigger jackpots and stuff like that at the pro level, that's when I really wanted to give it my all and do it all the time.
Awesome. So, like I said, you're going to be different because you're the only one I've interviewed that's not just a barrel racer. So I'm intrigued. So you said you did barrel race and now you only rope. So let's start with the barrel racing and the transition. Let's just go through it all. What led from one to the other and why, and how did you get to where you are today?
So, when you're younger, usually that's kind of where everybody starts, like at the play days, barrel racing, or they have pole bending or different, events like that. And you learn how to ride. You learn how to ride a horse, and then you get to do those events. And so I did that throughout. I even did that throughout college. But I liked the roping a lot more, and I was actually a lot better at that too. And so that's how I had, how I just stuck to the roping part. But throughout the years, I did every event. And now I breakaway rope, I team rope, head and heel. Sometimes I tie down calves. depends on the day, but that's just what I've loved to do, and then I've turned that into, liking to train the horses to do that as well too. And so I enjoyed the barrel racing, and I'm a huge fan of it. I like watching all my friends do it, but I just knew that I had a better chance going on the roping side, and that's what I love more anyways.
I love it. I love it. So with you, I can ask some different questions, and I'm going to kind of dive in some different areas here. But, for everybody else, it's been, you're looking for that athletic course with speed and the typical things that a barrel racer would want. But when you're talking roping, it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different deal, a whole different type of horse training. So dive into the differences and what you're looking for in your horse and what you have to do on a daily basis of getting ready for those events compared to what the barrel racing side was.
Yeah, I mean, my event right now, the breakaway roping usually only lasts 2 to 3 seconds, and so whereas the barrel racing, they might have a 15-second pattern, whatever it may be. Obviously, it varies, but so they have a little more endurance compared to ours. We want a fast horse also, but we want a quicker footed horse. We go from point A to point B, and it's very fast and it's very short. It doesn't last long, and so. And a lot of the barrel horses too seem to be a little bigger than the roping horses that I ride. But yeah, obviously they need to be quick and things like that. And then our horses have to stop really hard too. The barrel horses they turn, and they're all horses. We want them broke, in a sense, all the same way. How they move their body and stuff like that. But when I'm pretty much going in a straight line and stopping, and they're barrel rep horses run as hard as it can, and it's turning 3 barrels. And so just that's the main difference. My event doesn't last very long, and so I got to have a quick footed horse that's going to stop really hard and make my rope break off so my time stops. And then a barrel horse is going to have a lot more endurance and I guess longevity in their event.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what kind of training for you personally now? I mean, you've talked about the horses, but what did it change for you as far as keeping your body right and prepping and just, the daily things that you have to do to be able to compete? How does that differ from the days that you were barrel racing?
I mean, we do it every day. I rope every day, I ride every day, that's the main thing. It's funny you say that now. I'm actually 2 months ago, I had a little girl. And so I'm kind of trying to get back into fighting shape,
Congratulations, by the
Thank
way.
you. And so I'm kind of getting back into things now and starting to ride them every day and just get back into routine. But I mean, every day you're out there practicing and working on something. You might work on your horse that day. The next day you might work on yourself and your game. But I mean, every day's different, but every day's the same. You're going out there and grinding and working on something to get better.
What do you see? I shouldn't say grew up. I was kind of around performance horses for a quick minute there. So that's where I kind of learned, I was your typical person, would go to rodeos, have fun, but never really comprehended, that like roping, for instance, when you have a ranch, cattle gets out, that's what you have to do. They just turn it into a game over the years. So for something like that with your horses, it's like I said, it's a whole different ball game than barrel racing. Every horse is fragile and you have to be very, very cautious in your training. But like, what differences do you really have to do as far as keeping them maintained? I mean, I don't know. I'm not really sure exactly how to ask it other than just, what is the complete difference as far as maintenance for your horses and keeping them going and what's different there?
I mean, I think a lot of it's the same maintenance wise. Obviously you got to keep them healthy. You got to keep them feeling good, maintenance wise that way. Training, the biggest thing for us, I guess the most pressure you put on a horse is when you start in the box, because we started a dead still, then we nod our head, and that's when it starts. And that's a lot of pressure on a horse. And so that's one thing you have to work on a lot is they have to stand there, dead still, not moving a muscle, to as soon as I ask them to go, then they have to be hauling butt. So literally 0 to 90. And so you work on a lot of that because that's how you start your run, and that's at the beginning. And so if that's not good, you don't really start, give yourself a chance to do good, I guess. And so maintaining them that way, keeping them, calm, or keeping them confident that way, we got to work a lot on that, because a lot of the times horses, once they leave the box, their athletic ability and their want to chase a calf, sometimes a lot of that comes naturally. So that part might be a lot easier than the starting part in the box.
Absolutely. Well, so as far as your traveling goes, we've talked to many barrel racers and they mentioned their schedules. And, I've met one that was in a rookie season. So she wants to be out 24/7. I've talked to some
Okay.
veterans that are very strategic and, only go out when they need to be or when it's
Right.
a big event. How does that differ for you? Is it pretty much the same or, have you seen yourself go from going 100 miles an hour to slowing down here as you've gotten more mature and more of a veteran doing it? What's your strategy there?
Yeah. Of course, out of college and stuff like that, I wanted to go. But so it's different for the breakaway ropers. In the last couple of years, they've just added us to the pro rodeos. And so we haven't been in it, as long as the barrel racers have, or, calf ropers or team ropers, whatever that may be. And so in the last couple of years, they've added more and more rodeos for us to get to. So on the pro level, everybody's kind of actually learning right now, learning where to go, what's the best places to go, and how long you want to stay out there, because a lot of times when people leave for the summer mid-June, then they don't get back until September, and so
Mhm.
they're just gone all summer. Well, we're just now getting to where we can make a plan on, okay, I know this area has all these rodeos have breakaway roping now, or this other area northwest maybe, so we're really, that's hard to answer because we're learning. That's a new thing that's happened in the last couple of years, and so a lot of the rodeos are adding it now, and so we have a chance to go everywhere that the barrel racers have a chance to. So we're starting to go to where I can be gone all summer. Now, of course, it's going to be different because I've got a little girl, but um, in the winter, most of the rodeos are in Texas, so next after the first of the year, I get to go to Houston and Fort Worth and San Antonio, and so that's awesome. And those are super fun rodeos. And, of course, I'm going to go to those. Are a lot closer to home than maybe going out to the Northwest. But we'll have to see what this next year brings. It's going to be a lot different for sure.
That's awesome. Something I thought about as you were talking, I kind of forget because we know language and not everybody understands it. But you did mention that there's a difference in like team roping and calf roping and breakaway. What is the difference for someone that doesn't know the difference?
So the breakaway roping, just the girls can do it. And once we rope the calf, the end of our rope is tied onto our saddle horn with a piece of string. And so when we rope that calf and the rope comes tight, it breaks our rope off of the saddle horn, and that's when our time stops. As compared to a calf roper, they rope the calf and then they have to get off their horse, flank the calf, and tie the calf up. That's when their time stops. Team ropers, obviously, that's a team sport. You have a header and a heeler. The header ropes the head of the animal and turn the steer, and the heeler ropes the feet. So there's, yeah, the rope part is about the only thing the same, but other than that, it's a lot of difference in between those three events.
So I know a lot of people are probably asking, I think you tapped into this a little bit. So are you competing against only females or are you competing against the guys as well?
In the breakaway rope and just competing against the females right now in the pro rodeo and in the amateur rodeos too. There's some different jackpots that maybe the guys can enter, but 99% of the time it's just going to be girls against the girls. When you team rope, there's some chances that you will compete against the guys. It just kind of depends on when you enter, but that's when you'll go back and forth with the guys there.
Well, do you feel like there's any difference in the community? I almost feel like, to me personally, it'd be like basketball and football. It's all athletics, but it's completely different. Is there a different mindset in that specific sport compared to the barrel racing? I mean, do you see a difference in the cowgirls and the mentality and just the camaraderie and the way everybody is?
No, not really. I mean, we're all out there grinding it out, going up and down the road, and everybody, they always say rodeo families different, and it is. Everybody's, you know, out there to help each other, and it's kind of one big family. Of course, we're going to be competitive, but shoot, I'm gonna, go do my best and turn around and help the next person. That's probably one of my best friends too. So it's fun there, and you have awesome camaraderie. That makes it a little different than the team sports, because yeah, we're an individual sport, but we're so close to each other, then we're cheering for that next person too. So
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's go in now to like the day, your life in general. We're gonna hit the away from it when you're home, and I want to talk about like getting ready to actually go and ride too. But let's dial in with the home. What's life like? Obviously you've got work, you've got to prep the horses, and you got to do all the stuff to get ready to go ride. But what is just a normal day at home for you?
normal day, I mean, it's obviously goes around what I'm doing with horses, but I give a lot of lessons, and put on some clinics, and so if I'm not working on me or riding my own horses, then I'm helping somebody else rope. I do a lot of private lessons. I've done clinics all over. I'm actually doing a clinic in my house in a couple weeks, and so that's also how I make a living too. If I'm not rodeoing, that's my job per se. Now with a 2-month-old, every day's different. It
Yeah.
seems like the world revolves around her now. But shoot, I mean it's all about roping and rodeo, and still, even if I'm not competing, I've got an arena. We've got 2 arenas actually right up the hill from our house, and so I'll go up there and train or help somebody else or rope for myself.
Man, that's awesome. So I didn't know that part about you. And I mean, there's a calling for that. Like, what inspired you to want to teach? Because I mean, you can teach just because you know how to do it, but to really
Mhm.
be good at it, you've got to care and want this next generation to understand that. What's that like for you, and what drives you to want to do that for them?
So I actually got a degree in education. I've always liked teaching. I thought I was going to be a basketball coach for a long time, which still might not be out of the picture, but
There you go.
I just had a love for that. I like helping people, always have. And then now down being in Texas, there's a lot of opportunity where people want to learn, or people want to get better that way. And I love helping people. I like teaching, and of course I'm helping somebody with a sport that I fell in love with, and so I get the best of both worlds that way. But I like seeing people get better, and send me videos later, and it's like, hey, look what I won, thanks for the help. That's awesome. You always like that feeling when you get to help somebody and see them happy and enjoying the same thing that you enjoy.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing.
Yep.
All right, so we tapped into that. Now let's talk into prep as far as actually getting out on the road and going. I mean, we talked earlier with one of the barrel racers. She's the first one that kind of went in depth, because there's a question I'll ask later, but the answer kind of came from it. And she mentioned that a lot of the bull riders and stuff, they just got to show up, hop on the bull they draw, and so it's not necessarily this long drawn out process. For you got a horse to take, you got all your gear to take. I mean,
Mhm.
what's it like getting ready? Are you a scramble around waiting at the last minute? Are you very strategic and planned out? What's it like for you to leave the house and head out?
I think I'm probably right in the middle of that. I'm not going to say that I haven't procrastinated a lot in my life, but I mean, you've learned over the years, exactly what you need, and you obviously pack your gear that you're going to need. Saddles, tack, stuff like that. I have to have ropes. You have to pack feed and anything you need for your horse, and then you have to pack. We call it a vet box. I mean, you obviously have to put some medicines and different things to help with injuries they might get. They're animals, and we can't control everything they do, so things happen. So you have to have stuff like that. You have to have your own stuff, cowboy hats, your clothes and stuff like that. So it's crazy how much you can actually pack into a living quarters trailer, I'll tell you that. But when you're on, when you leave the middle of June and you don't plan on
Yeah.
coming home for good until September, I mean, you live on the road for those months, and so
Yep.
you have to have literally everything possible. And of course, on the road, during different places, and yeah, you go buy more, horse feed and hay and stuff like that. But you dang sure need the essentials, and need to have a plan to be able to, do whatever. And then comes down to two, how many times are we going to be on the side of the road changing flat? Like, we have
Yep.
to have stuff like that too. So it seems like every week being something different in the summer. You never know maybe what's going to break down, but you just have to roll with it. I mean,
Hmm.
it happens to everybody. You can't control those things. So you just have to be prepared as much as possible, but at the same time, roll with it and do what you can and go on.
I can completely relate. Sounds like being on tour with us.
Yeah, I
Uh,
believe it.
so as far as like, that you're about to be one of the next up to go out and do your event, what's the prep like? What's the mental focus there? I mean, I feel like it's probably not a whole lot different than what a barrel racer would do, but you know, for the sake of, you're the first one we've talked to that does something else. How does that differ? What's your process?
So to me, this is why we practice. We get muscle memories, we get our confidence in the practice pen. So when we go compete somewhere, we can, pretty much react and compete. Yes, I know there's a lot more that probably goes into that, but I try to simplify it like that. That way my mental game is as clear as I can get it. When I go to a rodeo, obviously we have to rope a calf. We can't control what that calf does, but if the stock contractor has taking that set of calves to multiple rodeos, then we might have an idea of what they do, how fast they run, or if they run left or right or whatever, you might have an idea of that. And each setup's different too when we go to rodeos. Some rodeos, just like the barrel racing, some patterns are bigger than others. Our score might be longer than other rodeos, and so I'm gonna go figure that out best I can and know what the setup is, and then once I have a game plan, I'm just gonna, trust that and react and see how it works. If not, if I'm trying to think about too many other things, then I don't have a clear vision of, what I need to be focusing on. So I try to that's why I put all the work in the practice pen and do the best I can there. That way, when I go to the rodeo, I don't have to think about 47 different things, because turns out we can't do that. We can only think of, one the best we can. And so, yeah, I'm not saying I haven't been to places where I've let my mind get to me and, let myself get nervous. I mean, everybody does that, but I try to put those nerves into adrenaline and use it for positive. So,
You tapped onto something that it's funny, because as soon as you said it, I was like, the light bulb hit of that's common sense. I can't believe I never even thought of that. But you're absolutely right. The calves that you're going after. I mean, do you get kind of, I'm using football terms here, game film on them to kind of know what the tendencies are and what they do? I mean, and even then, how, when do you know what you've drawn and what you're riding? I mean, how much time do you have realistically to actually prep for that, and how do you do it?
An hour before it starts, usually they're going to draw. So you're going to, know exactly what you got, so that you've got, ample time to figure it out. But yeah, we can get some game film, maybe last weekend I can look and, my buddy drew this calf then. And so I can say, hey, do you have a video from your run last weekend or whatever? Or maybe the night before, depending on how many people are entered in that rodeo, they don't bring a calf for every single person. They, might bring a third enough calves or half enough for the people entered. And so those calves are going to run more than once at a single rodeo. And so if somebody started last night and they ran that calf, then I'm going to try to get that video and see how it ran. And, hopefully, if it was good, it runs the same way with me. If it was bad, maybe it'll change its mind. But, like I said, you can't control what they do, but you've got to have an idea of at least hoping they, do the same thing they did the time before. So,
Well, I mean, how often is it consistent? I mean, do they pretty much kind of do the same thing time after time, or is it just a complete crapshoot?
no, I mean, a lot of the times they'll do the same thing, especially if you've got a set that's been to multiple rodeos, then, they kind of, run the same route more or less. When you've got new calves that's never been anywhere, then yeah, that's a crapshoot, because they don't know what they're doing, and you dang sure don't know what they're going to do. So, but most of the time, you've got a pretty good idea of what they're going to be.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to dive a little bit more about the horse. One of the things I've been intrigued by is the training process, but then, is there an age frame or something you're specifically looking for this sport compared to the barrel racing that you want to see, or a prime age, or, is it strictly just horse by horse?
It's horse by horse. Of course, any young horse is going to be a lot greener than an old veteran horse, we call them. But there's going to be good horses at any age, so it's horse by horse. But ours, like I said before, my event doesn't only last a couple seconds, and so we don't have to have top end speed like a barrel racer does, but I want to have a quick horse. That's what I always say. I might be quick from here to there, but I'm not going to run a marathon. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for in a horse, on the rope and wise too, whereas the barrel racers, they have to run for a long amount of time. But that's the only difference there. But shoot, there's a lot of horses too that can do both events, and so it literally is just horse to horse and trying to find the right match to you.
Well, is there a typical age that you kind of start thinking, okay, maybe it's time to go ahead and start putting them out there? I mean, is there, I don't know, a happy medium or anything there, or is it just strictly?
I mean, shoot, probably 8 to 15. That's usually that's your good veteran horse. Not to say that younger than 8 years old there aren't good ones, but they just haven't had enough lifetime really to go out and go to rodeos. Because when you take a horse to town for the first time per se, then there's a lot of different things they've never seen, if they haven't ever been off your place. And so that just takes time for them to stay confident, stuff like that. But usually around that middle-aged horse, then they've kind of seen all the sights, we say, and they know what's up. They're not too worried about much.
Okay, I want to dive in because with your sport, like you said, it's over in just a couple of seconds. It's not,
Mhm.
15, 12, however long that the barrels run. But for you, I mean, does it go by so fast you don't have time to really soak in the crowd, or because the main thing I thought was so interesting with the barrel racers was someone talking about how like it's just a blackout. They don't notice the sound, they don't notice anything. Some of them completely embrace the sound. I mean, do you even have a chance to even notice anything, or is it just gone so fast that it's just a blur?
Yeah, I mean, during the run, no, you notice much. I mean, sometimes if I'm in the box, waiting to nod, I
Mhm.
might notice maybe what the announcer says every once in a while, but really, you're focused on, you and what in the calf and stuff like that. But of course, then my run might only last 2, 3, 4 seconds, and then after that, of course, then I can hear the crowd, and I'm pumped if I do good too. But yeah, during the run, there's not much thinking going on other than what you're chasing after.
Yeah. Well, obviously, as a musician, I've got to bring in the music aspect of it. So,
Yeah.
like, are you kind of before you're getting ready, the prep before you're actually going to go in the ring? Is there any kind of a ritual, or do you like music, or are you complete focus? What's your style before you're getting ready to actually compete?
I mean, really, it's just, I mean, kind of go with the flow. Every rodeo is different, and so the rodeo the night, because we can go to 3, 4, 5 rodeos in a weekend. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So maybe the night before that rodeo, maybe the breakaway was the third event in the rodeo, and maybe the rodeo you're at now, it might be the sixth event.
Yeah.
And so it's yeah, I'm gonna prepare my horse in time, usually the same amount of time, and make sure they're warmed up and ready. But with me, I'm gonna maybe I'm first out, maybe I'm last out, I don't know. And so maybe I get to watch 10 before me or 30 before me. So that all changes, but I kind of just go with the flow. We always joke sometimes. I can be sitting here talking to my friend right before I go and not worry
Yeah.
about it. It's just one of those,
Yeah.
I can still do my thing and not just be completely zoned out. So
It's cool to see different personalities because that's kind of me. Even like going on stage, I've seen some guys you try to have a conversation with them and they're just, and I'm just
yeah.
like, I'm
Yeah.
just walking on a stage and playing songs. How's that so? Yeah, I don't. But
Right.
it's cool to see that in a different asset too, because I feel like we're
Yeah.
kind of in the same boat. If I'm super hyped or it's a sold out show, yeah, I got a little extra something. Otherwise, I'm
Sure.
just like, we're gonna walk up do the same thing we did last night, and the night before.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
well, that kind of ties in. So I was curious then, originally I actually thought you competed against the guys when I found out that you roped. I didn't know that it was strictly the females. But
Mhm.
with that being said, y'all aren't in the NFR and some of the parts that you talk. I did hear that right, didn't I?
Yeah, so we have our own NFR. We don't get to go to the Thomas and Mack with all the other events, but we do get to
Mhm.
go out to Vegas now. Where this year they're open at the South Point, and so we kind of we get to go to an NFR, but it's separate. It's not with all the other events yet. Hopefully.
Well, so I'm going to shift my question I normally ask, which I'm going to go ahead and say what I asked too, because it may dial in. But, the normal question is, do you feel there's any obstacles as a cowgirl, a female athlete in the rodeo circuit that you have any obstacles or any things that there's a disadvantage on? But even more than that, what's it like being on one of the sports that maybe isn't exactly at that top tier, but it's working its way up? Do you feel like you're kind of a pioneer of it? Is it discouraging at times? Or, I mean, how do you personally feel about all that?
Yeah, in the last couple of years, it has been hard because there's been a lot of change. Like I said, a lot of different rodeos have had to add an event, and as easy as that may sound to add an event, it takes a lot at a rodeo. They have to get more added money. They have to get different calves. Maybe more help too. And you know, if you go to a rodeo and they're used to this many contestants, well, you add another event that might add 100 more contestants. Well, how
Mm.
many more rigs may that be? Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of us can travel together, but then you got to have a lot more parking and stuff like that. And so it takes a lot to add to a rodeo, a lot more scheduling and stuff like that. And so it's been hard because, some of the rodeos we really want to go to, they might not have breakaway yet, but you can't necessarily be mad at them because you have to understand how much it takes to add something like that. And so, we're very grateful for the ones that have added us. And then we're hoping that the other ones that haven't see, how good the other rodeos maybe have got along with it and how much we can bring to a rodeo, because we're going to buy some diesel in your town and we're going to
Yeah.
get some food and stuff like that and bring money to your town. So there's been a lot of growing pains. It's been good. It's, yes, we've been frustrated at times, but that's just part of the growing pains, and we have to just work through it and keep getting better. And yeah, I think this was the third year, only that the pro rodeos have had breakaway, and so there's been a lot to change since year one. So it's I wouldn't say that we've had a disadvantage or anything, or had different deals like that, but it's just been hard because we've had to be patient, and we don't want to be patient.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great stuff. I straight up had something I was about to ask and I went brain dead. Luckily, we can edit this stuff. I'm sure I will think of it here in a minute, but till then, we'll just keep on rocking.
Fair enough.
All right. So I'm going to dive in now. So we obviously have a sponsor in common, which is Durango Boots. And so I'm guessing you are probably like all the others that had no idea that you were going to be in the video until we put it out there. So
Yep.
I'm guessing it caught you off guard. What did you remember the exact moments that were captured in there? And, what was it like seeing that, looking back at it?
Yeah, I was, when I first saw it, tagged on Facebook or whatever, and I was like, man, what is this? I mean, is this a mistake? What's going on? And then of course I started watching it, and I was like, holy cow, hey, that's me. And yeah, and I was like, oh, I remember when we did that, we shot for Durango in Millsap, and I was like, man, this is cool. And so I watched it, and then I had to watch it again so I could listen to the words because I was just trying to figure out what all was happening in the video. But no, that was cool. It was a cool prize to be into something like that. And then I mean, it was nice because you got to share our way of life in that video, and then of course we got to help Durango out too. So it was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I was really excited. We presented them the idea of, would they be interested in getting in on the video? And yeah, I had the vision from day one. I've told this story now how many times because of how many of these interviews, but
Right.
I had the back of my mind the dance, that video from Garth, where it was like, just him singing, but it was all just footage of people. And I kind of thought that same thing. I was like, this song ain't about me. It's about y'all. And so
Yeah.
it just worked out perfect. Like, well, we actually already have the footage. We don't need to shoot it. And I was like,
Yeah.
bring it on. So this was cool. But it's still, even when they say that, you don't know what you're gonna get. But man, I remember the first time I saw the first cut of it, I was blown away. And it's just it's awesome. I'm thankful that y'all let us use that, even though you didn't know we were using it. Still thankful for that. But now I'm so glad to be able to help y'all showcase just how awesome y'all are, because man, you are.
Thank you.
You see people just, I think of it as even as much as going to the venues we play and there's a mechanical bull and drunks think they can jump on there.
Right.
Dude, you ain't got the first clue about any of this stuff. And so
Right.
it's definitely, I've got a new appreciation for it over the years now. Well, that runs me out of the questions I had, because I still haven't thought of the one that was in my brain 5 minutes ago that I forgot in the middle of it. But so what's next for you? So you said you are going to be going to Vegas for the NFR and doing your side of it, but obviously this is that little small downtime in between now and then. So what's life for you like between now and then?
In a couple weeks, we have the WPRA finals, which the WPRA is Women's Professional Rodeo Association. So it'll be all girls. It's in Waco, Texas. So that's a pretty big deal for us. We'll get to go rope there 3 days, and then just staying around the house, just riding horses and training and stuff like that. Same day-to-day stuff. So of course I get to enjoy my little girl too. So that's been a big change, but it's slowed me down some, but like I said, I'm kind of getting back into things so I can get back in the schedule of going and rodeoing when I can. But the next big deal will be the WPRA finals.
I remember my question.
Yeah, perfect.
So, I'm not saying you're an old veteran by any means. We've interviewed some folks that have been doing this for 30 years and plus, but you're obviously, I think, somewhere around my age. So you've been doing it for a minute. One thing that really caught my attention was one of the way more veteran barrel racers I talked to, and I said, what was the difference between back then and now? And she talked about how they'd be back there cracking cold beers while they're waiting to ride. Now they're back there doing yoga and doing all this kind of stuff. But
yeah,
from when you started to now, what's the main differences that you've seen?
Really that we get to go to these big stages, because when I was in high school and college, at the amateur level of rodeos, not every association allowed the breakaway. It was even new at that level, let alone now where it's kind of new at the pro level. And so we were just fighting tooth and nail then just to get to go places. But now, we get to go places like the American, And there's been bigger rodeos with some different associations that's at us, and we get to go for big money. And that's the huge thing now. Back then, winning $1,000 was like huge. You're like, holy cow, man, we're getting to win this money. And now we've got chances to win 100,000 at the American, 60,000 at the WCRA finals that they have now. And so it's just life-changing money that we get a chance at, and that's evolved for all events of rodeo. That's been new in the last couple of years, but it's really big for the breakaway ropers because now we're finally, allowed in most of the things, and we're invited to all of the things now. And so that's pretty fun, and it's been nice to see it come full circle.
I'm surprised I hadn't thought of this because we kind of mentioned some of this earlier, but what do you think is the difference of why they finally start acknowledging and making y'all a part of the bigger events? What do you think's been the deciding factor?
I think, it's another ladies event. And so, people like to see that. And we've got a lot of, girlfriends, fans out there too now that's like, hey, girls can rope. They, don't just have to run barrels, because back then that was the only option. And so, of course, once, roping's been around for a long time, but once they got out of college, there wasn't much opportunity. And so you either barrel raced or you didn't do anything. And so now that there's a new event and we do some of the same things that the guys do, of course, it's like, oh man, this is awesome. We get to do this, and it's a super fast, event. And so everybody wants to see somebody rope a calf in 2 seconds. It's exciting. So.
Well, heck, I feel honored. I feel like I'm talking to one of the pioneers of something that's about to launch and be big. This is awesome.
Thanks.
Well, if you had one last message for the folks, is there anything that you'd want them to know, or anything you want to get across, or anything about yourself that you'd like to say before we close this thing off?
No, if you have a chance to go to a rodeo, go check it out. It's an awesome way of life. I always joked, if I didn't rodeo, I always wished I could sing, because, like you get to sing in front of thousands and thousands of people, and they come to see one person, whereas a rodeo, they're going to come see multiple athletes, and it's fun that they're, coming to watch you. Or like football games, people coming to watch, but they're watching a whole team. But shoot a singer, they're just coming to see you. And I think, I think that's badass, and I've always envied that. I've always loved music and stuff like that. And so it's, it's cool. I'm glad you've involved us in your music video, and I'm glad we got to be a part of it.
Well, I'm sure glad y'all did too, man. So thank you so much for being a part of it. And hopefully we'll be catching you. Since you're in Texas, you're not too far from me. So we'll have to make sure I get out to see you, or get y'all out to a show here too soon.
Heck yeah, I like it.
Right on, right on. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you out here.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.